Have you ever been having a perfectly normal day when your brain suddenly reminds you of something embarrassing you said 5 years ago? Maybe it was an awkward joke, a strange wave, the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. For a moment, it feels as if you're back there all over again. Your stomach tightens, your face feels warm, and one question quietly appears. Why am I still thinking about this? Here's what's surprising. Psychologists have found that our brains don't treat social mistakes the same way they treat most other memories. In fact, embarrassing moments can become some of the most persistent memories we carry. Not because your brain enjoys making you cringe, but because it believes those memories might help you avoid future social pain. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why your brain keeps pressing replay, why those memories often become more embarrassing over time, and what you can do to finally loosen their grip. Imagine you've just finished a conversation. Nothing dramatic happened. You laughed, you talked. Eventually, everyone went home. As far as you could tell, everything was completely normal. Hours later, you're brushing your teeth, or driving home, or trying to fall asleep. And then, without warning, your brain presses replay. Why did I say that? Did they think I was weird? Maybe I talked too much. Why did I laugh like that? Suddenly, a conversation that lasted less than a minute has become the only thing your mind wants to think about. What's frustrating is that you don't choose these thoughts. They seem to appear on their own. And the harder you try to stop thinking about them, the more convincing they become. Eventually, it starts to feel as though everyone else remembers that awkward moment just as vividly as you do. But here's the strange part. Most of the time, they probably don't. One of the biggest reasons embarrassing memories feel so powerful has surprisingly little to do with the memory itself. Instead, it has to do with prediction. Your brain is constantly trying to answer one question. How can I avoid making the same mistake again? From an evolutionary perspective, being accepted by other people wasn't just emotionally rewarding. It was essential for survival. For most of human history, belonging to a group meant protection, food, cooperation, and support. Being rejected could carry real consequences, so our brains evolved to pay unusually close attention to experiences that might threaten our social standing. Not because every awkward moment is dangerous, but because our brains would rather overreact than overlook something important. That's why one embarrassing conversation can stay with you, while dozens of ordinary conversations quietly disappear. Psychologists sometimes describe this as part of our negativity bias. Negative experiences, especially social ones, tend to capture our attention more strongly than neutral or positive experiences. They're treated as information worth remembering, even when they no longer matter. If that were the whole explanation, you'd probably replay every mistake equally, but you don't. You probably don't spend years thinking about the time you dropped your keys, or forgot where you parked. Instead, your brain seems strangely obsessed with the mistakes that happened in front of other people. Why? Because your brain isn't just evaluating what happened. It's trying to imagine what everyone else thought about what happened. And that's where things become much more interesting. The reason social mistakes linger isn't just because they happened in front of other people. It's because your brain tries to imagine what those people must have been thinking. And here's where your brain quietly plays a trick on you. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect. In a notable series of experiments by Thomas Gilovich and his colleagues, researchers found that people consistently overestimated how much others noticed their appearance, mistakes, or embarrassing moments. In one study, participants were asked to wear an embarrassing t-shirt into a room full of strangers. Afterward, they were asked to estimate how many people had noticed it. Their guesses were much higher than reality. Most people simply hadn't paid nearly as much attention as the participants imagined. Why? Because everyone else was busy being the main character in their own story, just like you are. But when something embarrassing happens to us, our brains assume everyone else's attention is focused exactly where our own attention is focused, on us. After all, Your brain has access to every awkward detail of your own experience, but almost none of everyone else's. So it fills in the missing information. They probably noticed, they probably judged me, they probably still remember. And once your brain starts telling that story, it begins looking for evidence that the story is true. Here's something even stranger. The memory you're replaying today may not be exactly the memory that originally happened. We often imagine memories as recordings, as though our brains store perfect videos of everything we've experienced. But memory doesn't work that way. Every time you remember an event, your brain rebuilds it. Researchers have found that remembering a memory briefly makes it flexible again before storing it once more, a process known as memory reconsolidation. Most of the time, that's incredibly useful. It allows us to learn from experience, but it also means our current emotions can quietly influence how we remember the past. If you already believe you embarrassed yourself, each replay can strengthen that interpretation. The event begins to feel bigger, more obvious, more humiliating. Not necessarily because that's what happened, but because that's the version your brain has rehearsed the most, which helps explain something many people have experienced. Sometimes a memory actually becomes more embarrassing years later than it felt in the moment, not because the event changed, but because the story surrounding it did. By now, you might be wondering something. If replaying embarrassing moments often makes us feel worse, why doesn't the brain simply stop? Because your brain isn't trying to make you miserable, it's trying to make you prepared. Psychologists call this pattern post-event processing. After social situations, especially ones that felt emotionally important, your brain reviews what happened, searching for anything it can learn before the next similar situation. Think of it like a coach reviewing game footage after a match. The intention is useful. Learn from mistakes. Improve next time. But sometimes the review never ends. Instead of learning one lesson, your brain keeps watching the same 5 seconds over and over and over again. Eventually, the replay stops being helpful. It becomes a habit, and that's the moment when reflection quietly turns into rumination. So, if your brain is trying to protect you, does that mean you should simply ignore these thoughts? Not exactly. Trying to force embarrassing memories away usually has the opposite effect. The more you tell yourself, don't think about it, the more your brain treats the thought as something important. Instead, the goal is to change what your brain learns from the memory. The first step is surprisingly simple. When an embarrassing memory appears, pause for a moment and ask yourself, am I remembering what actually happened, or the story I'd been telling myself about what happened? That small question creates distance. It reminds you that memories aren't perfect recordings, they're interpretations. The second step is to gently challenge the spotlight effect. Ask yourself, if someone else had done exactly what I did, would I still be thinking about it today? Most of the time, the honest answer is no. Because just as you're busy thinking about your own mistakes, everyone else is usually busy thinking about theirs. Finally, try allowing the memory to exist without trying to solve it. Sometimes the replay isn't asking for another analysis, it's simply asking to be acknowledged. And once your brain realizes there isn't a new lesson to learn, the memory often begins to lose its urgency on its own. The next time your brain suddenly replays something embarrassing, remember this. Your mind isn't trying to embarrass you. It isn't trying to punish you. And it certainly isn't trying to prove that something is wrong with you. It's doing what it evolved to do. Protect you from future social pain. The problem is, our brains sometimes protect us a little too well. They mistake ordinary awkward moments for important warnings. They replay memories that no longer need replaying. And they convince us that everyone else remembers when, in reality, most people have already moved on. So the next time an old memory appears, try greeting it with a little curiosity instead of criticism. You don't have to believe every story your brain tells you. Sometimes, you can simply thank it for trying to help and let the memory pass. If this video helped you understand your mind a little better, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like. It helps more people discover calm science. And if you're curious about the hidden ways your brain shapes your everyday life, consider subscribing for more calm, science-backed explorations. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. What's one embarrassing moment your brain just won't let go of? You might be surprised by how many people have experienced something remarkably similar. And if you'd like to continue exploring how your mind works, check out the next video on your screen. Until then, be kind to your mind.